Hi, it's me again, and I'm starting to think the BBC might have a bit of a problem with me. You know, why don't the BBC like me? What have I ever done to the BBC to annoy them? I just can't possibly think. But they obviously don't like me. They will not reply to any freedom of information request I ask now. And this one, I genuinely thought I would get through. I've asked several. I mean, if you look on my thing, I asked one recently about BBC Storytime, CBB Storytime. Right, they have celebrities on to read a story. I asked them how much they pay the celebrities. I thought that was interesting. No, didn't answer that. Even though they publish the salaries of BBC presenters and things like that. I asked how much Mrs Brown's Boys was costing to produce. You pay for it, hopefully you don't, with your TV licence fee. Surely you have a right to know the cost to produce. Is that not interesting to know? BBC Head of Orchestras was recently put in. I asked them how much the salary for the BBC Head of Orchestras would be. They published the salaries for loads of BBC people. Wouldn't tell me that. And it goes on and on and on. Recently, I filed this one, which I genuinely thought this would go through. I can't see an issue with letting me know this information. Look at this one. So, dear BBC, as the BBC cannot partake in official product placement, can you please let me know what the official rules and procedures are for logos being shown in BBC programming? It can be hard to cover logos using equipment or clothing. I would like to know what the rules are for this within the corporation, as in some BBC programmes you see clothing logos covered up by tape, then in others logos are clearly on display on clothing or equipment. Now I thought that was fair dues, right? This came about because I was around my mum's and I put on a BBC show that I actually like because she gets a free TV license, so I can watch it round there. I stuck on some Homes Under the Hammer and I was happily sitting there watching that. And one thing I noticed in this episode of Homes Under the Hammer is someone had a jacket with a logo here and a baseball cap on which would have had a logo on it. They were covered up, obviously by the production crew, with black gaffer tape. I thought, well, yeah, that's fair enough. You can't do product placement on the BBC, can't show logos. But then if you see some other BBC programmes, you see logos everywhere. And I made a video on this a little while back. This was one of the weirdest ones. I don't understand it. Now, have a look at it. Now, I spotted this on the BBC News YouTube channel yesterday, which was the 27th of February. You tell me what you think is wrong here.
Like a tide, and we do not have enough beds available for everyone.
So do you think a still shot of some Sennheiser headphones is doing anything for the editorial content of a coronavirus film?
I think things are holding up better.
So that was in a news report 3 years ago. I made that video. That was in a news report, and for no good reason at all that I can understand, why did it cut to a shot of a man sitting at a computer with two Sennheiser headsets sitting there? Now, I know Sennheiser is big in the television industry. They all use the headsets, they all use the microphones. It's a big brand there. But why? What use was that shot to telling the story that the news was trying to report? It just seemed so out of place when I clocked that. And that's not alone. I mean, there's loads of examples. Have a look at some more.
Just not my kitchen table.
Did you spot it?
Alice should have him. It's her dad, wasn't it?
When it suited him, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, I could really eat some Asda branded bran flakes about now. So this was in EastEnders, again, about 3 years ago, something like that. Now, it's a kitchen shot. I understand there has to be some kitchen related items floating about. You're going to need some cereals. Why can't they come up with their own brand of cereals? I've seen it in many other TV shows where they just come up with a phantom brand so that they can have that in there. Why? Who made the decision to put Asda Smart Price stuff in there? Who? Okay, so one of the worst offenders in this for the BBC is Only Fools and Horses. I mean, just look at this shot. There's a fairy bottle on show, an Asda bag. Well, it might be the same person who put the Asda Smart Price bran flakes in EastEnders, who's the same person that approved the use of an Asda bag in full view. What does that add to the story? Don't get me wrong, Only Fools and Horses is one of the greatest, if not the greatest TV show ever made, ever. I don't understand how that helps the narrative of what they're telling in that scene in Only Fools and Horses to have an Asda bag with the full logos on display. It's there for a reason. It can only be there for a reason, right? And this is just so blatant. Look.
Sweetheart?
Yeah, that was a good shot as well, wasn't it? I mean, that's almost an advert. That's almost an advert. How is Dell holding Kellogg's cornflakes perfectly framed for the camera, helping the narrative of that scene? Come on, that is product. The biggest smoking gun, you know, I don't want to pick on Only Fools and Horses, but there was a lot of it. But in many other BBC shows, which I will get through, I will do more on this, and I will call them out for this product placement. But one of the big ones in Only Fools and Horses, I'll play a couple of clips that I made, was the Daily Mirror. They mention it a lot and they show it a lot. I'll put some clips in here. And in the early episodes, you'll see when they read a paper, it's always the Peckham Echo. But look what happens in the later episodes. And you cannot tell me that this isn't blatant product placement. Watch.
Morning, Sid. What do you fancy, brothers?
Oh, she's wrong. You both got tickets for Saturday's party? I can tell you're looking forward to it.
Egg and chips, please, mate. What do you want, Rodney?
Something that was fresh this morning.
All right, give him the Daily Mirror, will you? Good morning, Rodney. How are you?
I'm alright.
Dell's not very well, Rodney.
Could they have not mentioned that at all, and would it have changed the scene? That is product placement. And as I said, there's loads more of it on the BBC. Loads of it. I've got a few examples that I've made notes of years ago that I've made notes of that I'm now going to start getting round to, because I filed this FOI request, as I mentioned, and the BBC took the maximum amount of time allowed to them to the day to reply to this. And what did they say to me? If held, the information you have requested is held for the purposes of art, journalism, or literature. How's that work then? I wanted to know what the BBC's got. It's a public funded, public service broadcaster. I wanted to know, because they're not commercial, they can't do product placement like ITV can do, like Coronation Street. I haven't watched it, but I hear there's a Co-op and a Costa Coffee or something, is it? On the main street. Because they can do product placement, they can do those sorts of things. It's fine. They can receive payment for having those things in there. There's no problem at all. The BBC cannot. So surely they have guidelines internally that they must stick to for showing logos. I just thought it'd be interesting to know the difference between how a commercial channel like ITV will work versus BBC. But they're holding that on the purpose of art, journalism, or literature. They did, however, provide, I'm not going to say they completely ignored me, they did, however, provide some information which I shall read for you now. However, on this occasion, we are happy to voluntarily provide the below information in response to your request. So they're not completely ignoring me. But as you can tell from the tone of this video, I'm not exactly ecstatic with their response. The BBC does not receive payments for products to appear on our programmes, and we are careful to ensure there is not undue prominence of products or logos displayed on programmes. The appearance of a logo may be incidental when reporting on a particular issue. Okay, yeah, that's fair dues. I get that. If you're talking to people on the street or you're interviewing people and they happen to have logos on their clothing, or they're sitting in their kitchen on a video call and they've got cornflakes, whatever, behind them. Yeah, I get that. You can't control that. That's fine. I understand. And thank you for providing that information. Not undue prominence of products or logos displayed on programmes. So how do you explain the Only Fools and Horses with all the Daily Mirrors? That is undue prominence. It's constant. There was only 2 newspapers, I believe, I might have to track it back, ever mentioned on Only Fools and Horses. The Peckham Echo. Does that Peckham Echo exist? Bear with. No, I don't believe the Peckham Echo is a real paper. As you would expect, you come up with a phantom brand and you can talk about that. The only other paper that was mentioned, and it was mentioned more than the Peckham Echo, was the Daily Mirror. Is that not undue? I don't know. So anyway, The BBC's editorial guidelines are published online and contain guidance for programme makers to follow, including guidance on product prominence in programmes. Okay, right. Let's have a cheeky little look, shall we? Product placement in live news broadcasts on UK public services. Okay, public services only. There may be occasions when there is placement in a live news feed, such as a feed from the States at the time of a breaking story, which is not normally broadcast placement if we know it is present. Someone edited in, on that clip, that wasn't live broadcast, that news clip, someone physically edited in that shot of the 2 pairs of Sennheiser headphones. How does that comply with your product placement in news broadcasts for UK public services? I put it to you, BBC, it doesn't. Next one on here is product placement requirements for BBC commercial services. So this is for commercial services only. All product placement in any editorial content made by any part of the BBC or service or any third party or commissioned a product by an independent production company for a BBC service must meet these requirements. Product placement must not compromise the editorial integrity or independence of the content of BBC service. Okay. No product placement of any product or service may bring the BBC and its services into disrepute. Okay. In services under the BBC's control, product placement must not influence the content and scheduling of content in a way that affects the responsibility and editorial independence of the broadcaster. Okay. References to placed products, services and trademarks must not be promotional or unduly prominent. That adds the shopping bag in Only Fools and Horses. Now, I'm not having a dig at Only Fools and Horses. I love the show. You can't tell me that couldn't have been a plain shopping bag. Someone chose an Asda shopping bag. An unduly prominent Del Boy holding up cornflakes. That's an advert. The inclusion of product placement should be signalled to audiences. Okay. Where did they signal the product placement for the news broadcast, for any of the Only Fools and Horses ones? Product placement must meet the applicable product placement regulation for the territory in which it will be broadcast. Is this cleared things up for you? It's as clear as mud to me. Product placement must not be included in news and current affairs programmes. Someone needs to take a look at that news clip and tell me why they've placed 2 pairs of headphones in there. I will put a link to these guidelines that they've said. I didn't read this at first and I've kicked off a bit on the FOI request, which I shall now remedy. But there's a lot of examples of this and I will be doing a lot more on this because someone needs to call them out on it. That you can do product placement PPC all you want. It's not a problem. Just go commercial. ITV do tons of it. It's fine. It's a thing that you can do now. You put the little P in the corner and you crack on with all the product placement that you want. What do you think about this? Have you noticed, like if you paid a lot, so you watch any BBC stuff, there's plenty of BBC stuff on other channels as well. So, or other services even. If you've noticed any product placement, do let me know in the comments below. I haven't watched a lot of recent BBC stuff because I can't. But some of the BBC stuff I've watched, there is plenty of product placement. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. As always, hit all the buttons and everything as well. And if you do that, hopefully I'll see you in another video again soon, won't I? Ta-da.